now at a rather critical juncture on the way toward achieving a legally binding agreement that would guide global action on climate change. With Copenhagen just over a month away, there is tremendous activity by governments in capitals and internationally to shape the outcome of Copenhagen. The level and intensity of discussions has increased at the highest levels, and we expect this activity to continue to the very last minutes of the Copenhagen conference. This is a good development, as it is only governments who can make the deal and bring us success in Copenhagen. Just over the past week, we have seen a number of developments toward a climate deal, some very positive, some decidedly less so. For example, on Saturday, the world witnessed a tremendous level of activity worldwide by many civil society groups advocating to keep atmospheric greenhouse gas concentrations to 350 parts per million. I just met the group of young people just a few minutes before this press briefing who were the global organizers of that, and it was fascinating to see the energy and the intensity of their activities. On the less positive side, there are reports of a new poll in the United States that indicates that interest and support for action on climate change may actually be declining. The Secretary General sees U.S. engagement as vital for a climate change deal, a point he made in an op-ed today and in interviews in Seattle. He stated that we cannot afford another period where the U.S. stands on the sidelines. He said he was encouraged by the spirit of compromise shown in the bipartisan initiative announced last week by Senators Kerry and Graham. Based on the results of the negotiations so far, the Danish government is now conducting consultations with other governments on the substance and the form of the agreement that may emerge from the UN Conference on Climate Change in Copenhagen. In that regard, the Secretary General is in regular communications with the Danish Prime Minister. The Secretary General maintains that governments need to seal the deal on a legally binding agreement. This agreement must effectively and fairly address what the science tells us. We need to limit the Earth's average temperature increases to less than 2 degrees centigrade. The Secretary General believes that we must maintain the political momentum established by the 101 heads of state and government who attended the Climate Change Summit and continue to aim for an ambitious, politically binding agreement in Copenhagen that would chart the way for future post-Copenhagen negotiations that lead to a legally binding global agreement. Next week, negotiators will meet in Barcelona for the final days of the UNFCCC negotiations before Copenhagen. Building on progress made in Bangkok, the Secretary General believes that further progress can and should be made urgently. During the next 6 weeks in the lead-up to Copenhagen, particular attention will need to be paid, and including by heads of states and government, to the key political issues, including targets and financing. Copenhagen can deliver agreement on a range of fast-track implementation measures for which credible resources are needed and which governments need to make available. The Secretary General is continuing to serve as a neutral broker for all 192 member states of the United Nations. He is continuing to advocate for an ambitious multilateral agreement that respects what the science tells us is needed to keep global temperature rise to safe levels. In this regard, the Secretary General will be attending a major meeting of representatives of the world's faith communities at Windsor Castle on the 3rd of November. Thank you. If you have any questions, please do.